Good morning, Chairman Nath and members of the Education Committee. My name is Darin Walters, and I am the Associate Principal in Activities Therapist at Valley Middle School in Grand Forks. I am here today to speak in favor of Sections 4 and 5 of House Bill 1461. House Bill 1461, Section 4, is the requirement or the recommendation to remove North Dakota schools from the Smarter Balance Consortium. I will speak in detail of the reasons why we support this and strongly urge you to consider those as we go through. Section 5 of House Bill 1461 relates to returning control back to local schools and giving them the effort and the responsibility of finding what best fits the needs of their students. The Smarter Balance Consortium is one of many state assessments. According to a recent article in the Fargo Forum, most kids take anywhere from 50 to 100 standardized tests during their K-12 experience. And along with that, for example, West Fargo Public Schools have about 95 tests. Some of these tests can be used as measurements within the school and are school driven. And those are great because the schools receive immediate feedback and can direct them specifically to instruction and student learning. On average, Gregory Cizik, who is a professor of educational measurement and evaluation at the University of North Carolina, said federally mandated testing is pretty modest at about 15 exams over that student's career. Now, a lot of times these exams are tied to accountability and funding, whether it's through the ESEA or Race to the Top programs. And these are the concerns that we have as schools because they do not allow us to do what's best for our students. The Smarter Balance Consortium and proponents for standardized tests consider or say that the main factor in these tests is it allows to provide feedback directly to improve teaching and learning for all students, regardless of any circumstances, socioeconomic status, or disabilities. My concern and question is, how soon do we get that feedback? When we take these tests, many schools do not receive data for over a year. And the problem with that is the students who have taken that test have now moved on to the next grade level. And the teachers are not given the opportunity to work with those students and provide the information, feedback, or instruction to help them improve. I relate this to if I'm driving my vehicle and my check engine light doesn't come on for a year. I've got something wrong with my vehicle and I never do anything with it. After a year, it's too late. The damage is already done, and I cannot do what I need to make my vehicle effective. And that's where I see one of the big problems with Smarter Balance. Many times also these snapshots, these assessments are just snapshots of the student's performance in that day, and we don't know what the circumstances are. Maybe they had something happen in their family. Maybe they didn't understand the concept, but we don't get the opportunity to ask that student because we do not receive feedback until a year on. And this is where that one-size-fits-all of these standardized assessments from a national level do not address the needs of each individual student. The implementation of Smarter Balance also affects the regular school setting. In the handout that I passed around to you, you will see the schedule that we use at Valley Middle School in Grand Forks for the 2014-2015 implementation of Smarter Balance. When you look at this schedule, you will see we used almost 4 weeks of classroom time to have the students participate in these assessments, whether it was the preparation for the first time online tests or the actual use of the computer system to take the test. Managing and finding ways to get every student within a building onto the computer and take these assessments was one of the main issues. The second issue is all the glitches that occurred with this. And these are concerns that we have, and as a reason we urge you to pass Section 4 of House Bill 1461. Is this not working? The second component of House Bill 1461 that I would like to address is Section 5, which is lines 19 through 24 of the bill. What this states is that it's the concept of local school boards determining English language arts and mathematics content standards that will be used at the district level, as well as how students will be assessed. This concept returns control to local districts, allowing them to focus on learning and equity for all students based on needs. Who better to know what their students need than the people that work with them every day? Once again, getting away from the one-size-fits-all approach. To kind of help clarify this a little bit, what I will do is I will share some of the demographics of Valley Middle School where I work. At Valley Middle School, we have close to 435 students in grades 6 through 8. Of that, 55% of our students, which is also in one of the graphs that I attached, 55% of our students are on free and reduced lunches. We also qualify as a Title I school, and we have students that have a variety of issues, whether it's socioeconomic status, single parent families, and different things. We have parents or students that are homeless, students that live in hotels. That's their family demographic. And because of that, we have unique situations, just like every other school around the state of North Dakota. We also have 18% of our student body on special education IEP plans. So we have a wide variety of students with large needs, and because of this, our students view school, with the climate we have created, as a safe environment. Whether they're there to truly learn or not, sometimes it's the best place for them to be. And our teachers have done an outstanding job to build that with them and to teach them this is okay. There are people here that support you and will do anything they can to help you as you go through your career. What I'm also going to talk about is, and it's in my next slide, is the idea or the concept of MAP testing. As we look at how school districts can form assessments to not only measure student progress, but also some of the effectiveness of a system, our school uses data from the MAP system. And if you look closely, and I got the graphs up here as well, but the first page in your handout just describes where our students fall. We have students across all areas, whether they are highly proficient, 95th percentile average, or low. We have 121 students who score in the low category of all when it comes to comparisons. And that is a concern for us. We know this, but we are not given the opportunity to work with them because of that late feedback on tests. Another thing we look at with our MAP scores is that 40% of our students, which is about 172 students in math and 168 students in English, qualify in the 40th percentile or lower on the national average when they take these tests. Okay? As we look at that as local schools, we know we have a need to find a way to help these students. Our school has done things like incorporating and piloting the MTSS system to develop individualized plans for our students. And that has been a great way for us to. We also use the MAP tests to create flexible schedules. We group our students by ability and allow them the opportunity to move between sections once they have accomplished the tasks at hand and feel comfortable with that to move on. So once again, we are placing a student in the area to have success. And with our students and our demographics, that is the biggest thing we can do for our kids. As we go through and we look at that, we say, okay, we need to move forward, teach our kids this, and we get that immediate feedback. We use common assessments. We use pre- and post-assessments as ways to do this, instead of having to wait an entire year to develop an educational plan for our students. And so that is the reason why we ask that you support the favor of Section 5 and moving in favor of giving local control back to school districts in House Bill 1461. An ending thought that I would like to share with you is this paragraph, and it is also in your packet. Students that have deficiencies in reading would read a paragraph like this. And as they go through and read this, these are the skills many of our students in that 40th percentile and lower have. So when they take a state assessment or a standardized assessment, they read a paragraph like this. Because of the pressure and the need, losing classroom time, preparing students for assessments, the common response is try harder. You are all educated adults in this building, and if the only approach I had to give you, or immediate feedback, or feedback that we get based on assessments is a year later, try harder, how many of you can successfully read that program? And that is where we are at with our students and why we need to look at additional options, giving schools control to assess kids and develop plans for individual learning and personal growth. We also use our MAP scores. In a situation like this, we can identify where our students are at and whether or not they're meeting the growth. When we go into this, we can click on those ranges, find individual students, and see exactly where their deficiencies were. So once again, it creates the opportunity for us to develop individualized plans and best monitor the needs of our students. I thank you for your time today, and I strongly urge you to vote in favor of Section 4 and Section 5 of House Bill 1461.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walters. Now we're going to go through, I wonder if anyone's got any questions for Mr. Walters. You gave a wonderfully comprehensive picture of your school, and obviously a very passionate one. And it might be that some of our committee members might even like to go and visit at some point, particularly Mr. Mock, is also you. So have we got any questions for Mr. Walters?
What kind of impact would you see the state having pulling out of Smarter Balance Consortium at this time, since we've made a financial commitment?
I agree the impact of the financial piece is there, but we have to get away from the concept of letting money be our driving force for everything. When you go back and you look at all the ties of the standardized test to ESEA and Race to the Top for the accountability, are we truly looking at the system and measuring the effectiveness, or are we worried about our number one concern, which is our students learning and growing? So if it's going to cost us money to do that, I don't see the issue with it. I know it's tough to take that to taxpayers and voters to get that approval, but if our number one priority is our students learning and growing, I think we have to take that risk.
Thank you.
How long has the trend been where you have a significant number of your students scoring in lower average? Has that been a trend that's been there?
Valley Middle School has has not made AYP since 2006 in a variety of categories, typically in reading, some in mathematics. The math data has been there, and I've only been at Valley Middle School for 4 years, but in the 4 years, our scores have gone up because of some of the things we've been able to implement, along with title programs, whether it's Read 180, System 44, to address reading concerns, but we still send our kids who do not have these skills to take these assessments. And the MAP scores have allowed us to individualize education, but not to the level we need to.
One of the questions I've had with other representatives is the accountability piece. You mentioned it a couple times. AYP. From what little I know about AYP, that's the level of accountability that needs there. Are you suggesting that we remove the accountability that the state has?
The state is always going to have that accountability piece, and I agree there needs to be some form, and that is where districts also having that control can determine what they are going to hold their accountability or their teachers accountable for. It does not have to be the student learning necessarily, because there are factors. If you are creating a safe environment and teaching the child as a whole, you are doing more good for that student than any test will ever be able to acknowledge.
Okay.
Looking at the technical side of it, if the Windows operating system comes out with a new update, or if iOS for Apple just releases a new update, and there's issues, they don't resolve back and go back to the previous version. So if we didn't have any technical issues with this past rollout, would you still feel this way, and why?
I still would feel that way because, once again, it is a standardized test created at a national level, and our local needs are not necessarily met. Our kids are different. In my district alone, we have 4 middle schools, and every middle school has a different demographic and different needs for our kids. So by allowing us to have local control, we can meet curriculum standards still in a way that best suits how our students will learn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walters. So we're kind of out of role now for a little while. You can stay where you're at. We really need to sort of maybe give you a little bit of feedback on the performance there. And again, you're the first one, so...
You want me to keep the camera going during this portion?
Yeah, I think for Darin's we can, yeah.
Okay.
So let's just have a think. I mean, we've got 3 people, Tim, Dan and Mark, who are going to be doing a written little reflection. Can we just get some things from them and from anyone? Starting with the positive.
Well, I'll say right off the bat, you're going to be a very hard act to follow.
Yes.
I would agree. One thing, you didn't go over the 5 minutes quite a bit today,
Yes.
but you really localized the issue. You know, and your representatives from your district better take note of that. And I think when you did that, you brought more emotion and passion to it. So you took people that aren't familiar with Grand Forks School District and you brought them, you brought them in to your concerns. And I'm hoping they would have the same concerns now, specifically for Grand Forks School District.
The level of detail, Darin, was really, really good. I really like that. I struggle with that myself on how much I need to put in there, because I think there's benefits of both. I think if you're speaking broadly, and in all actuality, we've talked about it before, and some of these representatives, they're not. You're going to lose them after the 6th or 7th detail. You're just going to. What they want to see in what my experience has shown them, what they want to see is the level of passion, the broad generalizations of, this is what we're doing for our kids, bam, 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 this is why it's effective, but I think you localizing with so much information is beautiful too, because I like the way that it presented itself, and it just showed us that what you're doing for kids, that's just outstanding to me. So, I think there's a kind of a butter zone.
And that was a piece of the 5 minutes, is how much detail.
Yes.
And when I timed myself, and I talked to Dr. Schultz in the elevator this morning, I said, I timed myself, I was under that 5 minutes, but then as you start going, and then you trigger more details as well.
Absolutely.
Again, just getting eye contact with people, you get that relationship going, and then you feel as though you want to do. Now, it's not a great sin to go above 5 minutes, but obviously there are lots of people wanting to speak at these committee hearings, and lots of people don't get to speak. And so therefore, I think it's a matter of professional courtesy that you keep within that 5 minutes.
I could think if you were actually giving testimony and you started getting negative connotation and you hit that, that time limit, I'm sure you'd stop. But if it was that positive and you went over, with some, I don't think anybody would stop. I think that actually conversation would be us.
Well, and that's exactly what we faced when we were in Minnesota. It's exactly what we faced. We were given a 5-minute timeline for 3 people to speak within that 5 minutes. That quickly turned into 45 minutes. That quickly turned into 3 hours of testimony within 15 different groups. So they were just saying more. We have lots of people. Let's get through it. And they tabled everything else for that day. They tabled everything else, and they needed. It's just so interesting.
In fact, the same thing happened at this meeting. They went for lunch and then reconvened because there was so much.
Well, and I'm sure for everybody here, trying to contain this in 5 minutes is difficult because this is a very important issue.
Right.
It's a very important issue. I think that it should be, and getting emails from Amy Kopis when they were going through this and letting us know where it was in the procedure. I would see this taking weeks of discussion.
I felt myself when I was preparing for this, taking things out for this 5 minutes.
I did too.
And I was concerned about that because I felt like then I ended up being a little more broad than I wanted to be because of that. And you did a beautiful job. I wish I could have had yours as an example so then I could kind of tailor mine around.
But this is an assignment that is about being concise. So whilst there is the role play, which is about the practical thing, it's also an assignment where you have to practice in being very concise and pointed. What is most important to say? And so it's also an academic activity to do that, to not waffle on, as I would say. But,
and then I thought your visuals were a real good compliment.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same, it was an actual additional piece that was relative to what you were saying.
And I didn't want to print color copies for it because that would have been pretty stiff.
yeah, of course. Has anyone got anything else to say? There are lots of strengths there, Darin, that people have picked out. We really did appreciate the fact you gave a great window into your school, and there was that passion there. And I felt invited to ask more questions. I didn't, and I'm not going to, because I think it's up to the committee to do that. But I think you performed very nicely. The only comment that has already been made, and that is, it went over a bit. And regardless of everything we've said, yes, it can go over, but on the other hand, it's down to the chair. And if the chair decides that there's 90 minutes for and 90 minutes against, then you've got your 5 minutes. And there's the list, and you have to do that. So although there is a tendency to go over on some of these more important things, we cannot assume it. We can assume we have 5 minutes. That's generally what they like to have. So I'm going to hold everyone to that 5 minutes. Even if, and we've got a little bit of spare time today just to have anyway. But in terms of grading, 5 minutes is 5 minutes. Okay, so we have to do that. So the people who are doing a written reflection on Darin, we will collect those in at lunchtime. But Darin, I'd like to thank you very much for what you've done. Very nice.